At first, it doesn't feel like an addiction. It feels harmless. Just a few minutes while waiting, a quick scroll before sleeping, something light to switch your brain off. Short videos don't demand effort, commitment, or attention. That's exactly why they work so well. They slip into the cracks of your day and slowly expand until they own your idle moments, your focus, and eventually your thinking patterns. One of the earliest signs of addiction is how uncomfortable silence becomes. Moments that once felt neutral now feel empty. Standing in line, sitting alone, even eating without stimulation starts to feel unbearable. Your brain begins to crave constant input, not because you're bored, but because it has been trained to expect novelty every few seconds. When nothing is happening, your nervous system interprets it as something being wrong. Another sign is the loss of intentional choice. You don't decide to open an app. Your hand does it automatically. There's no conscious thought, no reason, no goal. The behavior runs on autopilot. This isn't laziness. It's conditioning. Short videos are engineered to hijack the brain's reward system by offering unpredictable dopamine hits. Your brain learns that relief, excitement, or distraction is always one swipe away. Over time, you may notice your attention span shrinking. Long conversations feel exhausting. Reading feels difficult. Watching a full movie feels like work. Your mind starts jumping ahead, searching for the next stimulation before the current moment finishes. This doesn't mean you're incapable of focus. It means your brain has been trained to abandon depth for speed. Emotionally, short video addiction often shows up as restlessness. Even when you're entertained, you don't feel satisfied. There's always a subtle urge for more. More scrolling, more clips, more stimulation. The content doesn't need to be meaningful. It just needs to be new. That endless novelty keeps your brain chasing instead of settling. What makes this addiction dangerous isn't just wasted time. It's how it reshapes your tolerance for reality. Real life moves slower. Emotions take time. Growth is gradual. When your brain is calibrated to instant rewards, anything slow begins to feel dull or pointless. That's where the rot begins, not in intelligence, but in patience. The addiction deepens, the brain starts resisting effort. Tasks that require sustained focus feel heavier than they should. You procrastinate not because you don't care, but because your brain has learned that effort no longer leads to immediate reward. Short videos train the mind to expect payoff without investment. When real life doesn't deliver that same speed, motivation collapses. Another subtle sign is emotional numbing. After hours of rapid content consumption, your emotional responses flatten. Things that once made you curious, sad, or inspired now merely register. This happens because constant dopamine spikes reduce sensitivity. Your brain protects itself by turning the volume down. The result is a quiet emptiness that no amount of scrolling can fix. Memory is also affected. You may struggle to recall what you watched just minutes ago. Not because your memory is failing, but because the content never had time to consolidate. Short videos overwhelm the brain with information without giving it space to process. Nothing sticks. Everything passes. This creates a sense that time is slipping away faster than it should. Socially, addiction often masquerades as connection. You watch people talk, joke, react, and perform intimacy, but you're not participating. Over time, real conversations may feel awkward or draining. They don't offer the same pace or control. In videos, you can leave whenever you want. In real life, emotions require presence. That presence becomes uncomfortable when your brain is used to escape. Sleep is another casualty. Scrolling late into the night overstimulates the nervous system. Even after putting the phone down, the brain keeps racing, replaying fragments of content. This disrupts deep rest. You wake up mentally tired, reach for stimulation again, and the cycle repeats. The most dangerous part is how normal it all feels. Because everyone is doing it, the damage becomes invisible. But addiction isn't defined by how common a behavior is. It's defined by loss of control, withdrawal discomfort, and continued use despite negative consequences. Short videos check all three boxes. This isn't about blaming technology. It is about recognizing what constant stimulation is doing to the brain's ability to tolerate stillness, depth, and effort. Once those capacities erode, rebuilding them becomes harder, but not impossible. As addiction tightens its grip, your relationship with discomfort changes. Even mild frustration starts to feel intolerable. Waiting, struggling, or not understanding something immediately triggers an urge to escape. Short videos become the fastest exit. This trains the brain to avoid discomfort rather than work through it, slowly weakening emotional resilience. You may notice that creativity starts to fade. Original thought requires boredom, wandering, and mental space. When every spare second is filled with content, the mind never has time to generate ideas. Instead of creating, you consume. Instead of thinking, you react. Over time, this dulls your inner voice. Your thoughts feel less your own and more like echoes of what you've watched. Another sign is fragmented thinking. Your mind jumps rapidly between topics, images, and emotions without coherence. Holding one idea long enough to explore it feels difficult. This mental fragmentation makes problem-solving harder because solutions require sustained attention and mental continuity. Short videos reward interruption, not completion. Emotionally, many people report increased anxiety without knowing why. Constant stimulation keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of alert. Your brain is always anticipating the next hit, the next clip, the next surprise. This continuous anticipation exhausts the system. Even when you stop scrolling, your body doesn't fully relax. You may also begin to lose tolerance for nuance. Short videos compress complex ideas into simplified emotional reactions. Over time, this trains the brain to prefer extremes over subtlety. Things are either amazing or terrible, funny or boring, right or wrong. This black and white processing leaks into real life, affecting how you judge people, situations, and even yourself. One of the most overlooked signs is identity erosion. Algorithms feed you content based on past behavior, slowly shaping what you see and how you think. Without realizing it, your preferences, humor, opinions, and even fears begin to mirror what the feed rewards. When your inner world is constantly externally guided, self-awareness weakens. The brain isn't designed for non-stop novelty. It's designed for rhythm, engagement followed by rest. Short video addiction breaks that rhythm. It keeps the brain permanently engaged, but never fulfilled. That imbalance is what creates mental fatigue disguised as laziness. Over time, this fatigue shows up as a deep resistance to effortful living. Goals feel overwhelming. Discipline feels unnatural. Not because you're incapable, but because your brain has been trained to avoid delayed gratification. Short videos deliver reward instantly, without cost. Real progress demands patience, and patience now feels foreign. Another sign is emotional avoidance. Instead of sitting with sadness, loneliness, or uncertainty, you scroll. The content becomes a buffer between you and your inner world. This prevents emotional processing. Feelings don't disappear. They pile up quietly. Eventually, they resurface as burnout, irritability, or numbness. You may also notice increased comparison. Short videos often show curated, exaggerated moments of success, beauty, humor, or happiness. Consuming these fragments distorts perception. Your real life, with its pauses and imperfections, starts to feel insufficient. This comparison fuels dissatisfaction and lowers self-esteem, even when you logically know the content isn't real. Decision-making can also suffer. When the brain is overstimulated, it seeks the easiest option. Small choices feel draining. You delay decisions, overthink trivial matters, or avoid responsibility. Mental energy has been spent on consumption, leaving little left for action. One of the most damaging effects is the loss of internal motivation. Instead of acting based on values or purpose, behavior becomes driven by external cues. Notifications, trends, and viral moments dictate attention. When those cues disappear, so does momentum. This creates a sense of being lost without stimulation. The brain begins to associate calm with boredom and boredom with discomfort. This association makes it difficult to rest without guilt or anxiety. True rest, which requires stillness, starts to feel unsafe. That's when burnout becomes chronic rather than temporary. The rot isn't visible. There's no sudden collapse, just a slow erosion of focus, depth, and emotional strength. But awareness is the turning point. Once you see the pattern, the behavior stops feeling innocent and starts feeling intentional. And intention is the first step toward control. At this stage, the brain begins to resist boredom aggressively. Even a few seconds without stimulation can trigger unease. This isn't because boredom is harmful, but because the brain has forgotten how to sit with it. Boredom used to be the doorway to reflection, imagination, and planning. Now it feels like an error state that must be fixed immediately. You may notice that your emotional reactions become exaggerated online, but muted offline. Short videos reward quick, intense responses. Laughing hard, getting angry fast, feeling inspired for a moment. In real life, emotions unfold slowly. This mismatch can make everyday experiences feel dull or unimportant, even when they're meaningful. Another sign is mental impatience with people. Conversations that don't immediately entertain you feel draining. You interrupt more, listen less, or mentally drift while others speak. This isn't rudeness by choice, it's a trained reflex. Your brain expects constant novelty, and human interaction doesn't work on an algorithm. Your tolerance for effort continues to shrink. Things that require practice, repetition, or gradual improvement feel pointless. Why struggle when stimulation is effortless? This mindset quietly sabotages long-term goals. Skills, relationships, and personal growth all demand sustained attention, something short video addiction actively weakens. Physically, you may feel restless even when sitting still. Your body has adapted to constant micro-rewards. Without them, the nervous system feels understimulated and over-alert at the same time. This paradox leads to fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, because the rest isn't truly restful. The brain also begins confusing stimulation with happiness. You scroll when you feel low, but the relief is temporary. Once the screen goes dark, the emptiness returns, often stronger. This cycle trains the brain to seek relief externally instead of building internal emotional regulation. What's most deceptive is how productive the behavior feels. You're watching, learning, absorbing. But passive consumption without integration doesn't lead to growth. It leads to saturation. Knowledge becomes noise. Inspiration becomes fleeting. Nothing turns into action. As saturation increases, the brain starts craving stronger stimulation. Mildly interesting content no longer satisfies. You scroll faster, skip more, search for something that hits harder. This escalation mirrors classic addiction patterns. The problem isn't the content itself. It's the tolerance that keeps rising. Your sense of time may begin to distort. Minutes turn into hours without notice. After scrolling, you may feel disoriented, unsure where the time went. This happens because rapid content consumption disrupts the brain's internal clock. There are no natural pauses to mark time, so everything blurs together. Emotionally, this creates guilt and frustration. You promise yourself you'll stop, but the urge returns. Each failure weakens self-trust. You begin to see yourself as undisciplined, even though the system is designed to override discipline. This self-blame deepens the cycle. Another subtle effect is decreased tolerance for silence and solitude. Being alone with your thoughts feels uncomfortable. Instead of reflection, your mind seeks escape. Over time, this avoidance prevents emotional integration. Unprocessed experiences remain unresolved, quietly influencing behavior and mood. The brain also begins outsourcing meaning. Instead of generating your own goals, interests, or values, you absorb them from trends and viral narratives. This creates a sense of identity confusion. You know what entertains you, but not what fulfills you. The most dangerous consequence is not distraction, it's disconnection. Disconnection from your inner world, from others, and from the slow processes that build a meaningful life. Short videos don't destroy intelligence. They erode depth. Recovery doesn't start with deleting apps. It starts with recognizing what the brain has been trained to avoid: stillness, effort, and discomfort. These aren't enemies. They're the conditions under which clarity returns. At some point, you may notice that motivation feels inconsistent. One moment you feel inspired, ready to change your life. Minutes later, that energy disappears. Short videos create emotional spikes without emotional grounding. Inspiration arrives fast, but leaves faster because it was never earned through effort or reflection. The brain learns excitement, not commitment. Your ability to sit with a single task weakens further. Even when you try to focus, part of your mind stays alert, waiting for a reward. This divided attention creates constant mental tension. You're present, but not fully. Relaxation becomes shallow because the brain never fully disengages from stimulation mode. Another sign is the erosion of patience with yourself. Progress feels too slow. Mistakes feel heavier. When improvement doesn't happen quickly, frustration rises. Short video culture celebrates instant transformation, skipping the long, boring middle. Real growth lives in that middle, and when you lose tolerance for it, you start quitting too early. Emotionally, many people begin to feel a quiet sadness they can't explain. It's not traumatic depression. It's a dull sense that something is missing. This happens because constant consumption crowds out meaning. Meaning requires participation, struggle, and presence. When life becomes something you watch instead of love, emptiness follows. You may also notice heightened reactivity. Small inconveniences irritate you more than they should. This happens because the nervous system is already overloaded. There's no buffer left. Every interruption feels like an attack on your limited attention. The brain starts confusing urgency with importance. Whatever is newest feels most relevant. Long-term priorities lose emotional weight. This makes planning difficult and living intentionally even harder. What's happening underneath is simple but serious. Your brain is adapting perfectly to an unhealthy environment. It's not broken. It's efficient. It's optimizing for speed, novelty, and reward. Unfortunately, those qualities don't support depth, wisdom, or fulfillment. By this stage, self-awareness becomes the turning point. You start noticing the urge before you act on it. That brief pause is crucial. It's the moment where control begins to return. Addiction thrives in unconsciousness. Awareness weakens it. You may feel resistance when trying to reduce screen time. The discomfort isn't a sign of failure. It's withdrawal. Your brain is recalibrating. Just like a muscle unused to strain, it protests before it strengthens. As you sit with boredom, something unexpected happens. Thoughts emerge, not always pleasant ones. Unfinished emotions, unanswered questions, suppressed desires. This is why scrolling felt so necessary. It wasn't just entertainment. It was avoidance. Gradually, your attention span begins to stretch. At first, only slightly. You can read a little longer. Listen a little deeper. Stay present a little more. These small gains matter. The brain rewires through repetition, not dramatic change. Emotionally, sensitivity returns. Music hits differently. Conversations feel richer. Silence feels less threatening. These are signs that your nervous system is slowing down, leaving survival mode and re-entering regulation. You may also notice a return of intrinsic motivation. Instead of needing external stimulation, curiosity starts guiding behavior. You do things because they matter to you, not because they're trending. The damage caused by short video addiction isn't permanent, but ignoring it makes it deeper. Recovery isn't about rejection of technology. It's about reclaiming agency over attention. Attention shapes perception. Perception shapes reality. When you stop feeding your brain constant noise, it doesn't collapse. It clears. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you realize how much of your life was being postponed. Short videos didn't steal time directly. They fragmented it. They broke your days into pieces too small to build anything meaningful with. You were busy, but not progressing. Entertained, but not fulfilled. As attention returns, you start noticing how much energy you actually have. Mental fatigue slowly decreases. Sleep improves because your brain is no longer overstimulated before rest. Mornings feel clearer. Decisions feel lighter. You're no longer starting each day already exhausted from yesterday's noise. You also begin to reconnect with your identity. Without constant external input telling you what to think, like, or feel, your inner voice grows louder. At first it feels unfamiliar. Then it feels grounding. You remember what you cared about before your attention was hijacked. Another subtle change is emotional honesty. Without the quick escape of scrolling, emotions stay long enough to be understood. You stop numbing boredom, discomfort, or loneliness and start listening to them. These emotions were never the enemy. They were signals asking for direction. Your brain begins to relearn delayed reward. You tolerate effort again. You finish what you start. You build momentum slowly instead of chasing bursts of motivation. This is how confidence actually forms. Not from consuming inspiration, but from acting despite discomfort. The more present you become, the more obvious the cost of distraction feels. You realize how many moments passed unnoticed, conversations half listened to, ideas abandoned too early, opportunities ignored because your mind was elsewhere. This realization can bring regret, but regret doesn't have to turn into shame. It can become clarity. You didn't fail. You adapted to an environment designed to consume you. The final shift is responsibility without self-blame. You stop seeing yourself as weak and start seeing the system clearly. Short-form content isn't neutral. It's engineered to hook attention, shorten focus, and maximize engagement. Understanding this restores self-respect. Change becomes less about discipline and more about design. You alter your environment. You create friction. You protect your attention like something valuable because it is. Attention is the gateway to meaning. You begin choosing depth over stimulation. Fewer inputs, richer outputs. You allow silence. You allow boredom. And boredom, surprisingly, becomes creative again. It opens space for thinking, planning, imagining. Over time, life feels fuller without being louder. You don't need constant novelty to feel alive. Presence becomes enough. Progress becomes visible again, not because it's fast, but because it's real. Short videos didn't ruin your brain. They trained it for a different game. And once you stop playing that game, your mind remembers how to focus, how to feel, and how to choose. The most important realization is this: your attention was never weak. It was borrowed, and taking it back changes everything.